In this lesson, I'll cover how to really customize your blog so that it looks great, is easy to navigate, and will set you up for success as your blog grows. Let's dig in.
All right, now that we're in our dashboard, here is how you view your website and toggle back to the back end. So this is our front end, and this is the dashboard. Now, users who visit your website won't see this unless they are logged in. So that includes you and anyone that you invite as a collaborator to your website. So let's go back to the dashboard. Here, because we really don't have anything on our website yet, you'll have this prompt that will give you some next steps. And we're going to do a couple of these in this demo. So first, let's take a quick look at the different sections here. I am going to start with appearance and customize, which launches the customizer here on the left. This is just a really easy way to view the changes that you're making to your website kind of in real time. So I find it very helpful for visualizing and seeing what the change that you've just applied looks like. So first, site identity. This is where you can control the general branding of your website, especially the top logo here. So right now we just have kind of a text logo going on, and this is pulled in from the site title and tagline. When I set up my website, I already gave my blog a name, so this is the blog, but you can change it here. You can play around with a couple different names if you're still on the fence, see how it looks and feels to you. The tagline, obviously this one is generic, so let's go ahead and change this to something that a food blogger might have as a tagline. So if you don't have a logo, this is actually a totally fine way to brand your website. It is responsive, which means it will look good on iPhone or iPad or on like a large desktop. And you don't need to have a logo if you don't want to have one. You can also choose to hide this, although I don't recommend this unless you have a logo that you plan to put there. So here's what that looks like. If I do want to add a logo, I have the option and I can upload right here. And so I've gone ahead and prepared a logo that I just did offline, and this one I just whipped up, but you can use a service like Canva, or you can make one on your own computer and upload it. So there's lots of things you can do to generate a logo. I'm gonna copy the site title and use it as my alt tag. An alt tag is useful for people who are visually impaired and are using a screen reading device or assisted technology to have the images described to them. When you add an alt tag, the screen reading software will read it out so they can get a sense of what's on this image. I'm going to skip cropping because I want this logo to appear in whole. So here we go. This is what it looks like. So because I have this logo and this becomes clickable and always takes you back to the home, I am going to hide my site title. However, I do recommend always keeping something in here because when you visit the website, this is what's going to show up kind of at the top of the browser. Your site icon is the little icon that appears at the top of the website. If you have multiple browser tabs, then this one will pop up. So I'm going to actually use just the logo that I had, and I already prepared the square version of this, and I'm going to use the same alt tag here, and this one is fine. So here's an example of what that's going to look like, and I mean it kind of looks like a boat in the tiny favicon, but I think this represents the website pretty well. All right, so now we have kind of the basics of your website-wide branding. If I go back here, colors is a section where I can customize the background color. You know, I could add some different stripes and some colors, but honestly, I'm kind of digging the white, so I'm not going to change that. Header image allows me to set a whole image here at the top. Now, because I have a logo up there, I'm not sure that's going to look great, but if you wanted something that spans the entirety of the website, you could create your own header that has an image with the name of your blog over top of it. And then you would upload that image in this space here. And because this would only appear at the top of the website, it has to be quite narrow. So here we could kind of choose the part of the image that we want. to display. So here, this is what that would look like. So the header image, you know, if you have a logo that doesn't have any white background, this could work depending on the contrast and how well it looks. So you can combine a header image that already has the logo on it, a header image with a logo, or the header image with the text only. So if we were to display the text only, see, that doesn't look that great, but you can play around with these settings to really match the effect that you want for your website. Your background image is similar. You could set an image, just to show you an example. This actually, I'm kind of digging this, so I'm going to go ahead and remove my header because I think that's a bit much, and leave this background image because I kind of like it. Now, menus is not related to food menus. This is the actual name of the navigation. So here we have a sample page that came with the demo site and home. So right now our menu or our top navigation is populated by these two pages. Once we have a couple of more pages, I am going to come back to this section because without extra pages, it will be hard to show you all the things that we can do with our menus. So I'm going to leave that one for later. Widgets is what we call these elements on the side. Different themes, and I want to emphasize that some of these features will be theme specific. So with this blog theme, these are the features and the settings that are available to you, but if you install a different theme, you may have a different set of features. They are somewhat consistent from one theme to the next. For example, homepage settings, additional CSS, widgets, menus, and site identity you will find across all WordPress websites. But some things like colors and header and additional ways to display content will be specific to the theme. So let's get back to widgets. Widget areas depend on the theme. So in this blogging theme, we have a sidebar, which gives us a couple of different widget areas to control. And we also have a footer section, which gives us some options to display widgets in the footer. I recommend when you're shopping around for a blog theme to pick a theme that has very prominent widget sections, because part of the goal of designing your blog is to have people read your content and stay on your website as long as possible. And by showing them more options to read, more content to engage with, you have a higher chance of getting them to read through multiple blog posts before leaving your site. So for this, I think this is pretty exciting. We've got our primary section where right now this is auto-populated by the theme. So I'm going to leave these. I think these are pretty great. Meta maybe doesn't make sense. I'm going to remove that one for us. And just so you can have a sense of what else is available, here are some of the widget areas that you can add to your site, like tag cloud, text. So if you wanted to add some text to the sidebar that would appear across all pages. Really, your widget areas are meant to be site-wide information. So this will appear for all of your post pages, and you can also control how your widgets appear for certain pages. In the next lesson, when we talk about plugins, I will install Jetpack, and I can show you even more functionalities with widgets when the Jetpack plugin is installed. So just to show you, how you would add one, you can just click on it. You can give it a title. And this one will appear here below and give you a list of the pages that you have. And you can also exclude some, and there's a little bit more control that you can have on each of these widgets that you display. Now, if I wanted to put one in the footer, I would do something similar, and I would put recent comments, for example, and then this will appear in the bottom of the footer here. I can remove them. So this is how you control widgets. Homepage settings is important. So there's really only generally two options for setting up your homepage in WordPress. Either you are displaying all your latest blog posts and your theme handles the way that that's displayed, or you create a static page. And this is what I recommend for for normal websites where the blog really is only a secondary portion of the website. So the main page would be sort of a landing page where you can go off and check on different sections of the website, and the blog would be a link and you could go to the blog. But for a blog, really your blog posts are the main attraction. So I recommend sticking with your latest blog post as the thing that shows up on your homepage. So I can show you just what it looks like if you were to have a homepage that were static. You would have this page, and then you would go in and edit this page to be exactly what you want on the homepage. There is a way where you can do sort of a combination of both. For example, you could have a sample page or a static page like this set as your homepage, and on that page, you could choose to have a block in the bottom here that does pull in your latest posts. So you could, in theory, do a combination of both. You might have to play around with the display settings so it looks good, but that is an option if you have sort of a hybrid of a blog and a regular website and you want to have more control over the homepage. If you are choosing to do a static page, you have to choose the homepage that you want to set. I would recommend adding a new one that's called Home. And then the post page is the page where your blog post will auto-populate. So you would create a new page called Blog. That's what you would need to do if you were creating this static setup. But we're going to stick to your latest posts. Additional CSS is where you can add some custom code that will control some of the displays and the settings on your website, especially related to the look and the design elements on your site. All right, so let's publish what we've done so we can save it. Before we move on, we really can't do much on this website until we have added some posts. So I need to go in and click on posts, and here we get a welcome message to the block editor, which is how you can create your content and your blog posts and pages in WordPress. So if I click through this, it gives you a little animated demo of how you add blocks and how you can customize blocks and save blocks to use later. But I'm gonna show you some of that today. I'm not gonna get too creative because this is a demo and I want you to get the information so you can go ahead and do this on your own website. So here I have blog post 1. This is my title. And then I will add header 1, header 2. So here I've really just gone in and written some text. So automatically it's registering as a text block. But I've designed this as a header, so I want to change it to a heading, and this is where I can control if it's heading 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in web design, these are in order of importance. So heading 1 would be reserved for your post title, and then 2, 3, 4 would be for your next sort of logical hierarchy of information. It's really important to follow these, not just for design, because the theme designer has created different fonts and font combinations so that heading 1, 2, 3 is the hierarchy is very obvious to the eye. And the second reason is for search engines. When search engines go through your website, they're pulling this information as being important and reading it to get a sense of what your page is about. Now to add more text, I can add a paragraph here. And here's where you can view all of your blocks. And there are quite a few options. These are the ones that come with WordPress out of the box. And as you add plugins, more blocks will appear and more features will appear. So play around with this, check them all out, see how they look. You can test some stuff. And it's just a fun way to build the content on your page. So if I upload an image, I have some options here. And I always add an alt tag. All right, over here, we have 2 different tabs for our settings. We have our post settings, which are the settings for the entire blog post. So this includes visibility. So I could make this public, private, or password protect the post. And then I can publish it immediately, or I can schedule it for the future. I can stick the blog post to be at the top. So some themes will showcase this at the top of different sections because I've designated it as prominent or important. The permalink is the URL. So this is your website URL, and then the second part is the URL for this particular blog post. And categories and tags is how you organize your blog posts. And I recommend really thinking hard about how you want to set up your categories, what the main categories are going to be on your blog. And then tags are more granular. So I would recommend having a handful of categories, and you can be a little bit more liberal with your tags. So categories, let's say for a blog like this, a cooking blog, I would put things like breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, paleo, vegan, keto friendly, sugar free, whatever your different recipe types are, I would break them down into these categories so that they are somewhat easy to display and organize. Now, tags might be something like cake, pastry, savory, sweet. You could use a handful of tags on a post that would really only fit into one category. Or you could have something that fits into two categories and they could have, 10 tags on them. Chocolate, egg-free, you could go kind of wild with your tags. Featured image, here I'm going to add, I'm a bit redundant with my use of this, but it really is just to demonstrate. And the excerpt is kind of the summary of your blog post that will be shown on your website. So I would put something enticing, descriptive, that will make people want to click on the blog posts. Now, discussion is where you allow comments on your website. So I'm going to add a new category here because I want to have some examples. So now I'm going to publish. So I get this check here and publish. So let's see what this looks like now. All right, so here's my featured image that showed up, my author, the date, the text that I had in here, another image, and here it shows me the tags that I used. So now I've added a couple of more posts for us to play with, and if you go to posts, it'll list them all. If you click on quick edit, you can make simple quick edits to things like the categories and tags. So for example, this one I've accidentally left uncategorized and I didn't put any tags. So I can add some tags and I can do this in bulk as well if I want to add tags to a couple at the same time. This one as well, I'm going to change the category and I'm going to update that. And this one, as in fact, I will update both of them and show you what that looks like. Kid friendly, maybe a couple of other update. Right. So now that I have a couple more blog posts, I'm going to show you different ways that you can display your content. Before I hop to the next step, I'm going to show you here under posts, you have categories and tags. So you can go in and control your categories over here. So I can add one that's called salad. Now for SEO purposes, and more on that in lesson 7, I would recommend adding a description here just so that you can tell Google what this content is about. So salads, you could write a little description, and the same thing for your other categories. You could potentially nest your categories. So if you wanted to have desserts and then have sort of cakes, pies, and ice cream recipes all under that dessert category, you could do that as well. For tags, you can also control them down here, and you can sort of see if you have any duplicates. You can see how many times it's being used, and you can add a description as well. Right, so now that we have some content here to play with, let's go back to our dashboard and let's go to our customizer again. So this is just an example of what happens when you have blog posts to work with. If you search your content, you'll be able to find these, and your archive will show them by month and date. Now, let's say that we wanted to add a navigation to the top that would only show our salad recipes. Here we go to menus. I'm going to create a new menu and call this the main menu. And I only have one menu location in this theme. Sometimes you have a main menu and then they offer you the option to put it in the footer. And you maybe have a social menu somewhere, but in this case we have one menu to work with and it goes here. So this makes it easy. All right, so let's add some items. So in terms of pages, I don't have much to work with, but in the future, if I were to have a About Us page or Contact Us page, that's where I would put it. In fact, here I have a little shortcut so I can go ahead and add those already. So About and Contact. And maybe Partnerships. So here we have some of these pages. Now I want to showcase my actual content and I want to make it easy to navigate. So I'm going to start breaking it down already. If I wanted to, I could put each individual post, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. And I could organize them by categories, which does make more sense. So let's say I added the categories themselves. That way they show up here. I could also make this a little bit more organized. If I had subcategories, I could nest them. So that way breakfast, if I hover over it, all the subcategories could show up, or custom pages that I am interested in displaying. Same thing for pages. If I'm trying to keep my menu tidy, I could hide the contact underneath About, and I could hide Partnerships under there as well. You can go up to 3 levels too if you wanted to make that very organized. But I want to make these pages accessible, so I will put them on the first level. You can also add tags. So if I wanted to link to all the posts that use this tag, I could do that. So I'm going to show you really quickly what this looks like. So here I have some pages. Here I have my category. And if I click on this, it will show me all of the blog posts that are in the category breakfast. I can create other menus as well, and I will go ahead and create, and I'm going to go ahead and create a sample menu that I will use later in widgets, and I'll show you how that's done. I'm going to call this menu Carla's Seasonal Favorites. And in here, I'm actually going to add specific posts for this menu. Now I'm not going to put it in my header menu because I already have a menu here, but I am going to use it later. So I'm going to save this and then I'm going to go back to my widgets. And here in my primary section, I'm going to add a widget called Menu. And I'm going to select my new menu. Now this is giving me a little bit of a funny response because it's an apostrophe, but don't worry about it. It's going to show up just fine. So now I have this menu that's being displayed in my widget, and you can switch this up and put anything you want. You can put pages. If you were selling things, you could put links to the things you're selling. You can use this widget and this menu combination to do whatever you want. And I can even put it in my footer if I wanted to as well. And so here now we have this down here. So notice how when I go to a single page, these widgets follow me around. These really are things that display site-wide, so keep that in mind. One thing that I feel is missing in my sidebar is actually an introduction to the owner of the blog. I find that because blogs are so driven by the author and the author's personality and persona, this is a prime space to showcase who that is and have the reader connect with the author in that way. Here now we have kind of a face to this blog. I'm going to add a title and I'm going to link this to the About page because I think that is relevant. Now I want to add some text, and so I'm going to add that as a caption. So now there's a little bit more of a personality to this blog. So now I want to show you what you can do on some of these pages. So if I go to the About page, this doesn't really have anything on it yet. And just like with posts, you can use this block editor to add all sorts of content, from paragraphs to quotes to images to embedding videos. So some of my favorites here that I want to share are cover image. This just gives you a really beautiful, let me use something, yes, something like this, a really beautiful display. So you could do something like this with text over top. And so we went through some of the things you could do in the page wide settings, but each block also has its own settings. So you could set this as a fixed background so it doesn't move with your scrolling. You can control the minimum height of this cover, and you can also choose the color gradient and the opacity levels. So this is a really lovely way to kind of break up a page and to add some anchoring. And you can even make it full width so it spans the entire page. And I just love this one. I think it looks so stylish. Then another one of my favorites is the column feature, which doesn't sound that exciting, but it does help you organize your content quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 columns. And in here, that's where you can control how your content is framed and displayed. So I find it very useful for that purpose. I'm going to use a different photo here. And here I'm going to add a heading. And I'm going to make this a heading 3. And then you can add more blocks below. So here, maybe I add bullet list, or I add, let's say that I did have a downloadable, you can make it downloadable, which I think is very fun. I can embed a video if I do YouTube or anything like that. And I can also use buttons to link people to other content. View all breakfast recipes. And then I could link it to categories, for example, my breakfast category. So here it shows me options, and I can click on breakfast, and that will take me to all breakfast recipes. So this is just an example of really fun ways to connect your reader to more content on your website so they can really engage with your website and read more. Now that we have more blog posts to work with, I can show you another block which allows you to pull in different content. So latest posts is one, and so if I have it here, I will move it down, and let's align it center. So here I have the latest blog posts, and I can also showcase them in different ways. So just like with our other blocks, there are some options that show up on the side here. So here I can organize which categories I want to display, so I only show those. I can have more options or fewer options. I can limit them to fewer columns as well. And I can display the image so that it shows up. And I can also show the full content if I wanted to have it on there. For something like this, I would recommend adding a heading right above it. With something like read more. With buttons, you also get some more options here, and you can customize the size and the color settings, which is really fun. In fact, you can change the color settings on a lot of the different content blocks to draw attention to it, or to make it stand out depending on the content that you're showcasing. So I like to use this also to break up some of the different ways to display text. And what's helpful is that you'll get a warning if you maybe don't have a high enough contrast, and this might help you make some better decisions. One other thing you can do with blocks is to save them. So if I've created a special combination of blocks that I'm really enjoying and I want to display that on more than one page. Or if I have a template, like if I have a recipe template that I've created, I can group them together so this becomes one type of block. And I can also add to reusable blocks. So I could call this my recipe reusable block. And that way, every time I create a new page with a new recipe, I can just go ahead and pull that in and work from that. So now if I try and add one and I go to reusable, now my recipe block will be there and I can just pop it in here. You may have noticed patterns here, and patterns are reusable sections that come with your theme. So some themes will have some patterns already available, so you can go ahead and combine them with the ones that you've built yourself. Now I did do this on an about page, which doesn't make much sense, but I just wanted to show you some more of the capabilities of the block editor. And you can do all of this in your posts as well. So as a blog owner, there are some settings I want to draw your attention to, one of which is discussion. And so as you start building your community, it's your choice how you want to manage comments. So some people may want to restrict commenting to people who create an account, or you might want to hold comments for moderation. You can also add some words or addresses to a block list, which will hold these comments for moderation because they'll be flagged as suspicious or spammy. And that can help if you keep getting comments from Russian websites and things that don't make much sense with your community. You can put some of those IP addresses or URLs right in here so that they get held for moderation. You can also set some limits for your media settings. And lastly, here's some permalink structures. And I always recommend sticking to the simplest one. And I will explain why when we get to our SEO course. In your media section here, I did not go over this in great detail, but this is where you have your media that includes your photos as well as any PDFs or images that you upload to your site. There are still so many features we can add to this blog, but I will leave that for the next lesson where we talk about plugins, and I will show you what you can add using the Jetpack and Yoast SEO plugins on your WordPress website.